We bought the cheapest factory turbo GU coil cab ute on the internet for just 11.5 grand. And our mission is to build it into an insanely capable tourer on a proper budget. We're going to show you exactly what each mod or repair costs us. Plus, we're going to give you some tips on how you can do something similar. In this episode, we show you how to fix rust and give you a ratty looking four-wheel drive, a complete makeover inside and outside on a tight budget. You won't believe the transformation. Rightio, that's enough talk. Let's get stuck into it. Now, whilst this beast has a low kilometre, well looked after TD42 in it, the body has definitely seen better days, which is why we got it so cheap. And that's all about to change. Before we hook into Raptor coating the big GU, we're going to treat and remove the rust that needs to be cut out. Now, there isn't heaps of it, but enough that it has to be dealt with. The problem areas are here in the passenger footwell, plus a few small areas in the sills, and there is a bit of surface rust on the chassis. Oh, holy heck, that fought me right till the very end. As you can see, we're taking this old girl apart in the shed, and this is exactly where we're going to spray it as well. We're not going to use some fancy spray booth because I want to show you how you can take an old four-wheel drive like this one here, and with a bit of elbow grease, your shed and nothing more than some Raptor, make it look like $1 million. Rightio, folks, we've stripped the old girl back, taken pretty much everything off it here, and I'm surprised there's a little bit of rust, but there's not heaps of rust. We found, what would you say, two sort of specific types. There's some structural rust down in the floor panel there, it's going to need attention. And then this stuff here, which I guess is more cosmetic, but there's two different ways to treat them.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
I'm blown away by the fact that, we've got that's not a tool, 1, 2, 3, 4 tools. We can do both those.
Yep, pretty well.
So what's the go, mate? What are we going to do with the structural rust?
So the structural one, we're obviously going to cut. Use a grinder, cut the piece out of the floor, we'll plate it up and we'll weld that in.
Yep.
And on this one here, where it's sort of more superficial, we're just going to clean all that up, convert it across, and then we'll get some body filler onto it.
So it really is as easy as that?
Should be.
Can be done in the shed at home?
Definitely.
Well, this is where my expertise runs out. Robbie's comes in. I'm going to watch you, mate, learn a bit here, but if we can start with this one here, that'd be fantastic.
No worries at all.
Folks, we're about to give away 1,000 prizes with the next 1,000 orders from Snatch Clothing. Now, look, those prizes could range from a sticker and a stubby holder all the way up to signed merch, and one lucky person has got to win it, the golden ticket. What's that all about? Well, that means you get to come along on an all-expenses-paid trip with a 4-wheel drive 24/7 crew and make an episode of 4-wheel drive 24/7. Now, last time we had this offer, it went absolutely berserk. Those 1,000 orders were gone in a matter of only an hour or two. So I suggest you jump online right now, snatchclothing.com.au. We will package your free gift at the warehouse. All you've got to do is open it up and enjoy. And I tell you what, if that gold ticket's in there, I'll chuck a beer in the fridge for you. First up, Robbie is using a wire wheel on a drill, as well as a grinder and a palm sander to clean up some of the loose rust. You can see here, he has stripped back a fair bit of the paint around the affected area, even to where there is no rust. Doing that ensures you treat all of the rust. Also, he's being gentle with the grinder too. If you go too hard, you can actually remove more of the steel than you want to, and it can be harder to repair. Righto, that has come up. That's actually not as bad as I thought. That's what, a couple of centimetres?
Yeah, definitely could have been a whole lot worse, that's for sure.
Could have been. So you brought that back to pretty much bare metal now. What is the plan? Just leave it as is?
No, so from here, what we'll use, we've got a rust converter and a primer that we'll put on.
Yep.
Let that set, and then from there we can put some filler over the top.
Righto, so what are you actually going to put over the top of this now?
So we use this Brunox.
Yep.
It's a rust converter and a primer all in one.
Oh, okay. So you literally just spray that on and leave it for
24 hours.
Okay, simple. Even I could do that bit, but I'll let you continue, mate. You've done a good job so far.
Too easy, mate.
Nice
no
one.
Worries.
While Robbie cracks on with the rust repair, the other boys and myself are jumping onto the tools to get the old GU sanded and prepped for the primer. When it comes to sanding prep, if you're just going to do a light scuff of the panel like we are, fine grade paper is best. We're not stripping the vehicle back to bare metal, so using fine sandpaper lets us lightly scuff the panels and get rid of any imperfections in the paint without taking too much off. For the rust spots that can't be bogged up, the rust needs to be cut out, like this hole in the floor. First up, Robbie is masking up the section he wants to remove. Now, notice again, he isn't just cutting out the rusty bit. He's cutting out a nice rectangle. As we mentioned earlier, this ensures you get all the rust out, and also, welding in a replacement rectangular sheet of metal is much more straightforward. Once it's cut out, ensure you clean the area nicely so you can get a nice solid join when you stitch weld in the new section. Now that the rust on the side panel has been prepped, Robbie is mixing up some isopon to bog up the hole. This stuff is pretty simple to use. Just mix it up and fill the holes, smoothing out the edges as you go. So how crazy is that? All Robbie's done there is just put a bit of tape behind there. That's all he's done, just put a bit of tape in there. Then he's put epoxy and glass. Now, he could have used epoxy and bog, but because this is a bigger area than something so small, we've used the epoxy and glass down here, made it into the rough shape we need, and then we're gonna let that dry and then sand it back off, paint over the top of it, a bit of Raptor, and you won't even know that was ever there. Apparently, Robbie reckons we could even do something as big as this snorkel hole right here if we were to use exactly the same technique. So when we said you could do it at home in your shed, we really mean it. There's not that much to it with a bit of practice. I reckon that'll come up looking lickety-split. Righto, we're gonna keep sanding. Right, folks, a bit of a wrap up for you as to where we're at. Obviously, Robbie's done a brilliant job of cleaning up these two bits of rust, this one down here, and of course this big structural one down in here, so they're ready to be primed up and ready to rock and roll. Damien's done a magnificent job up on that front quarter up there. He's bogged that up and just taken that right back. You would never know looking at it that they used to have a big dent in it. And of course, we've all worked pretty tirelessly to get this thing buffed back now and scratched back. We're gonna give it a bit of a wash and get all this off here. It's been a big day. I reckon we wheel her out, we'll give her a bit of a tub, close the doors. Tomorrow, that's actually my way of spray painting. I'm not sure if that's right or not, but tomorrow we'll start putting some Raptor on this thing. And I reckon, looking at what it looks like now, this time tomorrow, it's going to be a completely different vehicle. I'm frothing on it. It's going to be fantastic. It's really important at this stage that you give your four-wheel drive a good clean to make sure you get rid of any dust from the sanding and dirt that may have been left on the vehicle, so that when you apply your primer coat of Raptor, it comes out nice and smooth with no imperfections. With all paint, but particularly with Raptor, the key to getting a long-lasting finish is in the prep work. Spend the time prepping and cleaning the substrate properly, and the Raptor will adhere much better. All right, before we get started here, folks, I'm just going to use a bit of this adhesion promoter here on the edges, all the way around where we've got any tape work or where we can't get in and rub with sandpaper, just so that we get really good adhesion when we do go to put the Raptor coating on. So anywhere along the windowsills here, anywhere where there's tape, anywhere where it's hard to get to, I'm just going to hit with a bit of the old Raptor adhesion promoter right now, and then the fun starts. And now it's time for the epoxy primer. First things first, you want to make sure you give it a good mix. Next, pour the primer into a separate container and mix it with the primer hardener. This will help to set the primer so it dries and is ready for the final coat. Once that's done, add the primer to your spray gun and away you go. A handy tip when you're using a spray gun like this is to keep the gun parallel to the workpiece and try and spray in nice, steady movements without holding the gun too close. It's always better to do lots of light coats than one heavy one. So when it comes to getting a nice even coating, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Another tip is to keep the gun going a little way past the panel you're spraying so you get a nice even coating right to the edge of the job. We're going to be using tintable Raptor here, which you can mix with any normal automotive 2-pack paint. We're adding about 10% colour to the Raptor, and once that's done, you just need to give it a good shake before testing the spray pattern. Alrighty, folks, we are nearly there. About to lay some Raptor on the GU. However, there's one last step we want to do. We've got a bit of cardboard in front of us here, a bit of a blank palette, if you will, and what we're going to do is just put a couple of test runs on that and just make sure we've got the right consistency before we hit the vehicle, because you don't want to hit the vehicle with the wrong consistency. You can't take it back off again. It's not that easy. So we'll get it right on here first, then away we go. So I'll just run a couple of tests down, see how she looks. Righto, now that we've dialed in our desired texture and tested it out on cardboard, we can crack on with the main event. Now folks, when it comes to Raptor spraying your panels, lots of lighter coats is better than one thick coat. And you want it to be thicker in high traffic areas like doors where you're most likely to get scratches. Well, don't know about you, but I reckon that looks absolutely fantastic. Now, if you don't remember anything else, remember this. That last coat you saw me do where I stood right back, I'd maybe given it half an hour, 45 minutes for it just to come tacky dry and given it one last coat from up high. What that does is just put an even dusting of Raptor over the top of it, takes away any imperfections you might get, and just leaves it looking absolutely Mickey Mouse. That is the most crucial step to this whole process. That last high up back distance dusting over the top of everything, just to blend it all in. And have a look at that. The proof is in the pudding. It looks sensational. Now folks, if I can do this, literally, you can do it. I'm super proud of that. He's gonna be so stoked. Look at this. While we let the cab dry, I'll give these flares a coat of black Raptor with a couple of cans. It's particularly important with plastic that you give it a coat of the adhesion promoter before Raptoring, otherwise the Raptor can bubble and it won't stick properly. Folks, I think you have to agree, this is looking so good. Now, quick tip for you. You're probably going to be tempted right now to send this outside into the sun and give it a good baking. You're probably thinking that's going to dry the paint off. It's not. It's actually going to do the opposite. It's a bit like yourself. If you go and sit out in the sun right now, you're going to get sunburnt, and the same will happen to this. It's crucial. You've come this far. You've gone to all this effort. It's crucial now that you leave it undercover, as we are in the shed here for the next 24 hours. Just let this cure, let it harden, do its thing, and then we're going to come back tomorrow, get these accessories back on, going to get those nice flares put back on here. She is going to look smick. Can't wait to show you, but for now, 24 hours. I can have a couple of beers in that time. Catch you soon. Before we can show you the finished product, we need to remove the plastic and reassemble the old girl, plus a few more finishing touches on the front grille. Clip that into there. And that, oh, is satisfying. Just need to add that centre badge. I'm gonna give it a little polish before I put it in there though. And that will set it off, close the bonnet down. Look at that, beautiful. With the bull bar back on and the flares reattached, it's time to get this bad boy out of the shed and have a look at just how good Andy's GU is looking. And here it is. I tell you what, I reckon the big GU is looking $1 million with its new Raptor coat. We decided on this colour because, well, I reckon it looks tough, but I didn't want it to be too dark, so we went for a slightly lighter shade. It took us just a day to do the prep work and then about half a day to do the painting. It really was as quick as that, and of course, we did the whole thing in the shed at home. We ended up using 3 litres of Raptor to coat the body, plus 1 2-pack aerosol can for the flares, which comes in total around $390. 1 can of adhesion promoter, $38. Epoxy primer and hardener, $89. Brunox, $40. Isopin, $17. The very nozzle gun we used cost around $180. So all up, we got this job done for about $754. How damn good is that? G'day folks, hope you're enjoying this episode. Now look, I just wanted to take this chance to remind you that all the gear we've used so far, so the Raptor products to make that GU look absolutely smick, and of course Jocko with the Dynamat products are available on our website, fourwheeldrive247.com. Now what happens after every time we say this, these products run out the door. So I suggest if you want to transform your four-wheel drive into an off-road beast, grab yourself some Raptor, grab yourself some Dynamat and get stuck into it, only on the website, fourwheeldrive247.com.
How unreal does this look? Graham and the boys at Raptor did an awesome job making this GU look as tough as nails. Don't know how much of it was Graham's handiwork. I reckon it was mainly the Raptor boys, but we won't tell him that. Now that the cab's all repaired though and the rust is sorted, it means I can start hooking into a whole bunch of other accessories to make this GU an off-road budget weapon. Come and have a look at what I got planned. The first thing I want to do is I want to sound out in the cab with this Dynamat stuff. I put this in my solid axle swap Hilux years ago, and despite what it may look like, it's actually pretty comfy to drive on the road, and I reckon a lot of that is to do with this. So to do it properly, I've got to strip the interior out, pull the seats out, the center console, the carpet, get in under the floor. One, Ooh. I think I'm gonna give this cab a vacuum before I Dynamat. So I've actually got a fair bit of this stuff, so I'm gonna be doing the floor and probably the doors as well. But it is worth noting, if you don't have much, you can still get a good result with it if you put it in key areas. Places like your footwell, the firewall, and the doors. What is important though is when you are putting it down, make sure you take your time, really make sure it sticks down nicely, but also ensure you don't cover up things like grommets in the floor so you can still use them to get water and things out. You don't cover up any mounting holes for seats, and also wiring as well. One question you hear a lot with this stuff is, does it trap water underneath if you do get water in the cab? No, it doesn't, provided you ensure you install it properly. So, for example, I'm using one of these rollers to just make sure you run along any gaps to make sure there's none underneath. And make sure that the surface is clean, obviously, before you stick things down, and it's nice and firm on the floor. The other thing you can do is use some of this Dynamat tape, Dyno tape on the gaps as well. That'll just help to seal it. But as long as you install it properly, take your time and make sure you get as much air out of it as you can, and you shouldn't have any dramas. So I guess the two main advantages of putting Dynamat in your vehicle are, the first being obviously it helps to dampen acoustic vibrations coming through the steel, so it makes it quieter inside. But the second reason it's really good is it helps to reduce heat coming through. And that's particularly important on, for example, a GU Patrol. The dump pipe's right behind here, and then the exhaust runs down and underneath the footwell here and then out the back. And you'll find that a lot of passengers, particularly if you've upgraded your exhaust over time on a long trip, this section of the floor can actually get quite hot, and the passenger's leg can get quite hot as well. So this will just really help to keep heat out of the cab and also make it comfier on the longer trips. Check this out, I was just about to do the top section. I just had a little knock test to see. I've only done the bottom half of the door. You can already hear a difference. That's pretty cool. Sweet. Just got to bolt the last seat down, take it for a drive and see the difference that the Dynamat makes. In the cab, I can definitely notice that when you hit bumps and stuff like that, it's much more muffled, and that's where the Dynamat will really help. When you hit harsh bumps on the road and stuff, because that noise transference coming through the steel is now dampened, it just makes things a bit softer and quieter and nicer inside. Also, revving the engine too just doesn't sound as harsh, and that's where putting it in your cab, particularly on longer trips, will really come into its own. Righto, so the UHF I'm installing is the UHF 182X. This one's really cool because it's actually got two antenna inputs, so you can run two different antennas through the one unit. For now though, I'm going to mount the transceiver probably up under the dash out of the way. Then I've just got to find a spot, because all the controls are on the handpiece, so you can mount it so it's nice and close. But I'm thinking somewhere under there should be good. With the cab all back together, I'm just trying to get a feel for the best spot to put this handpiece for the UHF. I'm thinking here because it's close to the gear stick, but it's out of the way so it won't hit his leg when driving, but it's still in reach. Righto, so there's one more thing I want to do. I've got a set of 5 Mickey Thompson Baja Bosses to put on the vehicle. Now, even though this is a budget build for a young four driver, it's worth putting a quality set of tyres on. These are the exact same tyres I've got on my solid axle swap Luxy, except these are in a 33. On a dynamic steely, so I thought these would be perfect for Andy's GU. It is worth noting though, I'm still yet to put some springs and shocks in, so they may scrub a little bit, but I mean, come on, I've got a brand new set of 33s here. I can't not put them on the car. Like a kid in a candy store with this.
So let's have a look at our budget so far. We purchased the vehicle for $11,500. Raptoring the vehicle cost $754, the Dynamat kit was $299, and the Oricom setup was $379. Plus the Mickey Thompson 33-inch Baja Boss mud terrain tyres were $2,700. bringing us to a current total of $15,632.
Well, it's been a massive couple of days. We've fixed the rust, Raptor coated the cab, Dynamatted the interior, installed a new Oricom UHF, and we've also installed a trick new set of 33-inch Mickey Thompson tyres. We're not done yet though, we've got a heap more to put on. We've got some 12 volt there, we've got to do suspension, and we've also got to look at a basic storage setup as well. Before any of that happens though, what's really important now is for Andy to get a bit of seat time in the vehicle as it is, to try and figure out how best he wants to set up his storage and camping setup. That's the best way to learn. Go out with a basic setup, figure out what you like and you don't like, and you can build from there. So make sure you keep an eye on all our social media pages and YouTube as well for the next stage of the build of the big GU. As for me, it's back to building Hiluxes for a bit.